Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to do a quick overview review of my 2012 Honda NC700X. This bike is fairly new. NC basically stands for new concept, and Honda basically introduced this bike not too long ago as a bike for new riders, commuters. Basically, it's an extremely fuel efficient bike, and so yeah, I'm going to do a quick review of this bike, how I like it, what things I don't like about it, and so forth. Um, let's go over some of the features of the bike. It's got a single disc in the front. It has the engine. One of the most significant difference on this bike is the motor. This motor is basically derived from the Honda Fit. It's basically half of the Honda Fit motor, and as you can see, it sits over here. It's very weird for a motorcycle engine layout, and what that does is there's actually nothing up here, so there's a lot of space. This is not a gas tank over here. This is actually a luggage compartment. So that's one of the nice features of this bike is you can open this up and there's a huge luggage compartment in here that gives you plenty of storage. It can actually fit a full face helmet in there. So that's really nice. It has a basic dash, a digital dash. It has basic information on there, your tachometer, speed, clock, that's pretty nice, mileage, fuel gauge, and your usual lights right here. One thing that you'll notice is that the red line on this bike is just over 6,000 RPM, so it's very different than conventional motorcycles. It's got the power band is very different on this bike, so I'm going to go over that. Some of the upgrades that I have on this bike are this larger screen. The original Honda screen just comes out to be this big. This screen is a touring screen from Honda, and it does a very good job of keeping the wind off of your chest. The other thing I changed is I added this Honda trunk. This is an original Honda trunk. It's not cheap, by the way. It's about $599, and you also have to buy a rack for it. These grab rails and the rack that this thing is mounted on, that's something that you have to actually buy. So you have to take off the stock ones, cut a little piece of fairing in order to mount it, and then that's how the rack goes. So that's something kind of different. The fuel, so since this is not a gas tank, the fuel is basically located right here under the seat. So this right here is the gas tank. It's a fairly small gas tank, but the gas mileage on this bike is extremely good. So because of that, it goes a long ways. So let's go ahead and talk about how this bike rides. I've been using this bike as a commuter, and to be honest, the gas mileage is excellent. It gets upwards of 70 miles to a gallon. Yes, upwards of 70 miles to a gallon, and that's the best part of this bike. I've already ridden about over 140 miles, and look at the gas gauge. I filled it up. I've ridden over 140 miles, and it's still right there. And I'm sure the bike will go over 200 miles before you actually need to fill it. It's about a little over 4-gallon gas tank. The bike rides really nice, but however, it's very different than most motorcycles that you're used to riding. The power band is very different. The bike makes most of its power on the low end, so it's very torquey, between 2,000 and 3,000 RPM, and on the top end, it kind of just dies out. A lot of people say that this bike is not very fast. I'm going to say this bike is just not fast. It's not fast, period. And that's okay, because this bike was designed to be a commuter. This bike was designed to be a bike that new riders can ride. And this bike was designed basically around the excellent gas mileage, which it gets. So This bike is basically for someone who's been riding for a long time, just wants a no-frills bike that looks good, and wants to commute on it. That's what this bike is for. It's for excellent gas mileage, low maintenance. One thing I like about this bike is that the engine is very low maintenance. It's got the valve, and the valve adjustments is nut and screw type, so very easy to do. All you have to do is just take the front, the radiator off, and you have easy access for the valve cover. You can take it off, do the valves, and you'll be done in 2 hours. So that's one really nice thing. You don't have to take any major parts off the bike. Brakes, let's talk about the brakes. That's one of the things that I don't necessarily like about the bike as much. They do work really well. Oh, by the way, that's my dog Django right there. So, Django, good boy. So, basically, yeah, we were talking about the brakes. So we're talking about the brakes. The brakes are, they do work. The front brake is really nice. It stops the bike really well. However, they do give you almost no feel. I mean, you stomp on the brakes, the bike does slow down, but you just don't get the feedback from the brake pedals. And that's one thing that's really different. A lot of people have complained about locking the rear wheel on heavy braking. I haven't had that problem, but there is actually no feel on the brake. So that's one thing that maybe putting on braided brake lines would resolve. One thing I love about this bike is the mirrors. The mirrors on this bike are excellent. You can see they are nice and wide. They are very stable at speeds, and you can see really well what's going on behind you. What else? Vibration, there is a little bit of vibration at highway speeds around 75, 80, but it's not too bad. I wouldn't do much long distance riding on this bike, so it's fine for commuting. It's not bad. I've had worse bikes. Other than that, suspension is decent. It's I feel a lot of people say that it's too soft. I kind of feel the opposite. As a commuter, I think it's a little too harsh. I would like it a little softer for a little more comfortable ride, but it's fine. It's sufficient enough. I wouldn't do much on the suspension. The seat is fairly comfortable. It's good for at least about 120, 140, 50 mile jaunts, and you're fairly comfortable. Seating position is very upright and very neutral, so that's a good plus. So like I said, this bike is for someone who's either a new rider, wants a low maintenance bike, or for someone who just wants a commuter, low maintenance commuter bike, excellent gas mileage. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.